Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located. I'm Gabriela Castro Smith, a workforce strategy advisor at Trading Motion. We work with mining companies to quantify the real risk of not having the right long-term and skilled workforce in place before it impacts timelines, cost, and performance. From there, we design and build tailored teams of professionals and technicians aligned with each project's operational realities. This, this podcast is about how leaders are making smarter workforce decisions in a rapidly evolving mining landscape. Today, we are honored to have this great guest that I know from long time ago, Ian Graham. He is the president of Oroco Resources with the project Santo Tomás located in Choix, Sinaloa, Mexico. Ian has played a central role in positioning Santo Tomás project as a globally relevant copper asset, leading investor engagement, government, and community relations. Welcome to our podcast, Ian. Thanks for being our guest.
It's great to be here, Gabriela. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
And we would like to know about you, about Santo Tomás, about Oroco Resources, the good practices that the company, your team, and all the community and the stakeholders have been doing for years.
Thank you. I would love to relate that story to you. A bit of background for myself. I'm a geologist by training, but I think in recent years I've become more of a generalist, trying to put teams together around projects and to advance companies around technical teams who have good business support. And so the Santo Tomas project particularly is, I think, quite a good example of that. It is a wonderful project. Technically, it's a future source of mined copper. But I think from your perspective, a key part of the story really began in 2020 for us with COVID, when we began to assemble a technical team at the site who could help us move the project forward with drilling, geophysics, and the usual technical work that takes place around a copper porphyry project that is moving forward. And we had the COVID challenge. So in 2021, which is we spent a bit of time together that year, if you recall. My wife Linda and I relocated to Choix in Sinaloa because travel was very difficult with COVID. So we relocated to Choix, and there we set about trying to build a technical team that could support our surveying, our drilling, our geology. And with the challenges of COVID, it was quite difficult to get people to travel, to move. And I think one of the great silver lining benefits for us was the one group of people that were very willing to move and looking for work were young technical people based in Mexico. And so we assembled a team of one great character, young fella from Peru, whom you know, Miguel Quintana, and then along with Miguel, a team of women and men, mostly in their 20s, who gathered to advance the project. And you'll recall that Mike Smith, your husband, was part of the training group that gathered with us to construct that team and set it in motion with the systems that we would follow. And I'm really happy to say that that team, I think, became extremely competent very quickly. and took the project forward to the point that I'm no longer needed or relevant down at the project site, and that group are now leading our phase 2 um, initiative, which will take us through to a pre-feasibility study. So, I think you're right. People are key. I think we were exceptionally fortunate in the assembly of our team at Santo Tomás. I'm particularly proud of them and what they've achieved, and are continuing to achieve, learn, and accelerate the project. So, I think that's a key part of the Oroco Santo Tomas story is the capability of the team, the fact that we also have support for the technical team derived directly from the area around Choix, where everybody supporting the project comes out of the communities and the town of Choix, and people who were our neighbors when we were living there are key parties in moving the project forward. And as well as the Trevizos, Don Ubaldo and his son Ubaldo, are also partners, partners in the project. They're partners at the project level, but their company, Tempisky, is our primary support services company, and they hire entirely locally in support of the project. So I think we've built the project up from a base of people in Choix. And I think that particularly helped us in 2024 and 2025, when we were less active on the project after we published our PEA. The community noticed the reduction in activity, no drills, that sort of thing. And that was a response to reduced investor support for Oroco in Canada. Concern arose around the open pit mining scenario, where there was concern about future permitting of open pit mines in Mexico, coming from comments by the former president of Mexico. And our activities were reduced. We were not raising significant aliquots of money. And that concern was taken by the people of Choix to their congressman, Mario Zamora. He connected with us, traveled to Vancouver last year around this time in March, met with key bankers here, and then undertook, when he returned to Mexico, to take the concerns of the people of northern Sinaloa and the Choix El Fuerte region back to the federal government, which he did a couple of weeks after his visit here. A number of us from Oroco management and some of the personnel from the project, including Miguel, whom I referenced earlier, visited in Mexico City with the Secretariat of the Economy, several senior personnel there. And that began a process that took us also to Culiacan, meetings with the governor and the Secretary of the Economy in Sinaloa. And those meetings culminated with us being included in a program called Plan Mexico, which is an assembly of large capital projects in Mexico that are nominated for development by the federal government. It's an initiative of Claudia Sheinbaum's to support the Secretariat of the Economy in moving large capital investments forward in Mexico. So we're blessed. We're part of that program that gets us permitting support and other support that will help keep the project moving and keep momentum towards a major investment in the project. And all of that came as a bottom-up um, byproduct of community support that was generated for the project essentially since about 2019, but more particularly 2020 onwards, when we were very active and employing quite a number of people and just involved in the community, in the schools, getting IT technology into the primary schools, those sorts of initiatives, which were initiatives taken with the teachers, with the community, and most particularly with the school kids who had several environment drives, garbage recovery, and other environmental initiatives around the city of Choix and in the environment around, um, to essentially earn their computer and IT equipment in the schools. So, we were very integrated we are very integrated in the community, and when our activities diminished, that attracted the commentary from the community and then the direct support from the political representatives elected to help northern Sinaloa thrive. So, I think that's a people story. It has reminded me in recent years of just how important neighborliness and cooperation are when you are fortunate enough to be hosted in a community or by multiple communities when you're involved with a resource project. So, I think that's a key part of the Santo Tomás story. And it's one of the most gratifying aspects of our involvement in Santo Tomás, the people that have assembled to move that project forward.
Yeah, exactly. And it's congratulations to you, to your team, to the company in Canada and in Mexico, because building a good relationship with the community is key to have a successful project and in the future operation. And I think that you did a great job. And because at the end, the communities are there, the communities are supporting the project, and the project is supporting the communities. It's a win-win situation for everyone. But what I'm really surprised is that the community engaged with a politician or someone from government to say, hey, this is our community. The mining company is helping us. We work together. We need your support. And what is better is that this person from the government of Mexico or from the local government went to the federal government and say, this is what we have. This is our project. This is our community, and we need support. And you got it.
It's amazing, Gabriela. One of the very compelling things about Choix is they know mining, right? They've worked at El Sosal when that was operating until 2014. There's a number of small direct shipping iron projects are dotted around the region. There's been a history of gold and silver, small scale mining, but people know mining and like the activity. A great many of them have been in the sector for a significant period of time. So, they know what mining's about. And one of the fun days each year in Choix is the day of the miner, and people put up little tents and there's food on the sidewalks, and it's one of my favorite days of the year in Choix. And so, there's just a straightforward relationship with mining. And then between us, people involved in the sector and the community, because they're, knowledgeable about it and knowledgeable about the challenges and the benefits of mining projects.
Sure.
So, that helps a lot. To the credit of the town, they have done a fair bit educating us rather than the other way around. And that does make it easier to collaborate, to talk about issues, things that arise, and just have a willing dialogue that exists between us and people in the communities. I would say we treat each other as neighbors, and enjoy the dialogue, as when we talk about the future, current activities, whatever the subject matter is. So, that has made it easy. It's a wonderful community to have a project adjacent to. So yes, I guess we've been very fortunate in some ways as well. And I think, much of the compliment for that relationship really belongs with the Ubaldos and the communities themselves. So, I definitely want to recognize their mining background and approach to mining projects.
Yeah, and that makes me think that the Choice community is proud of being a mining town.
No, they are. They are. I mean, you've seen that personally, you know, so you're aware of that, and it definitely helps, which is, I think, one of the very, very strong recommendations for our project. It is adjacent to a mining community that supports and wants that development.
Yeah, exactly. Because as we mentioned before, it's a win-win situation for everyone, and the community
Mhm.
is benefiting from the project, growing with the project, and kids are having, as you said, this initiative that the company had to provide IT tools, and kids can benefit have a benefit from all these good practices
Yeah.
from mining companies, in this case, Oroco Resources. So it's, as I said, it's a win-win situation, and that's what many mining companies have, these good practices. And Ian, I want to talk about the project. As projects like Santo Tomás move closer to construction, as because you mentioned that you are moving towards pre-feasibility. So what are the
Mhm.
critical milestones over the next 12, 24 months that will define whether this becomes a build decision?
Right. So we need to produce that pre-feasibility study, which is targeted for the second quarter of next year. We need to do some drilling on the South Zone and elevate the classification of the resource in South Zone from inferred to indicated. So we need more drilling, denser drilling, and a better definition of that part of the ore body at Santo Tomás. So we're busy with that, and we're intending to complete all that drilling, some geotechnical, hydrological drilling, all the bits and pieces we need to feed into a pre-feasibility study. So we're busy with that now, and we'll scale that program up a little bit, ideally finishing the drilling this year in 2026, so that we have the data to work on early next year and update that resource estimate, the mineral resource estimate. And then that will feed into the engineering studies that will further crystallize the work that was done in the preliminary economic assessment. So that's the aim of on the technical side. In addition, we're doing environmental baseline work that has just started this month and will last through March of next year. So we have to collect a year's worth of environmental baseline data. That's fauna, flora, and other environmental measures and considerations. And we're intending to do quite a lot more work on our tailings solution, a lot more detail than was afforded that in the PEA. So quite a lot of work going on. Again, back to the people, that's being led by the young people who joined the project in 2020 and 2021. And so there's been some promotions of folks who were recently out of university or had just modest work experience into the key roles, line management roles at the project now. So that's fun and to watch how they're doing. That sort of covers the next 12 months, Gabriella, and then we need to complete the PFS, which will be late Q2 next year. And then we need to move the project into exploring development permitting. So there have been some recent open pit permits issued in Mexico. One closest to us is at a project belonging to Silver Tiger. And we don't quite know how long that process might take. With the support of Plan Mexico through Plan Sinaloa, we anticipate we will be able to step through that relatively quickly. But that will be the majority of the following 12 months, probably a 3 to 9 month process, but we'd expect more likely 6 to 9 months. Pursuing the key development projects that need to be in hand before final feasibility work is done on any particular aspects of the project that require it, and a transaction is pursued to underwrite the development of the project. So that, I think, walks us through the next 12 to almost 24 months.
Yeah. Wow. Congratulations. I think that as copper now is one of the main minerals or metals that are needed to build the new energy way of living with these new cars. I think that it's promising that Santo Tomás will be part of these companies producing copper and helping the new era of energy. And you were...
We agree. I mean, I think the timing for bringing this pre-feasibility through that process and availing the world of the copper at Santo Tomás is quite important. It's definitely exciting. Again, coming back to the team, that's actually what motivates them. They feel like what they're doing is relevant. It is important. The world needs that copper. Santo Tomás would be a sizable producer, but not among the very biggest. The largest copper producers approach, or some years make 1 million tons of copper, commonly in concentrate. Sometimes part of that is in cathode at the site. And we'll be making a little over 100,000 tons of copper a year. So that's an above average production size, but closer to the average than the very large copper mines. But nevertheless, it will be a significant copper producer. And we do have potential in the district to expand the district footprint. There's a known copper deposit north of us called Baharachi that's not owned by Oroco. And we see some showings of mineralization that we think are associated with another intrusive, volcanic-based system geologically. So we're seeing some evidence at a project we call Vinea, for potentially another center of copper mineralization. So Santo Tomás may well be the anchor project for more than one copper mine in the district. So we certainly hope for that, a district development. That's not uncommon in copper deposits, that there are, where there is one, there are more than one. And so, the whole thing is an exciting story, and with a bit of luck, it unfolds to include multiple mining operations over time. So all of the young team are really, really motivated about that, and they've begun the mapping and exploration of Vinea. So yes, the time is good, I think, for copper projects. The world definitely needs more copper. The big producers are aging. Their cutoff grades are falling with the current incentive pricing, which will help them sustain operations. But there is no doubt we need more copper and new copper mines coming online,
Yeah.
actually in reasonable numbers of new mines, in order to feed the global need for copper, and the expansion of the new economy, but also the just continued electrification of
Yeah.
the sort of bottom billion people who are not, thoroughly electrified as we are. So it's good to be part of the solution for what is a genuine global challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I agree with you, Ian. And you mentioned that you have a young team working in Choice with you. And I want to ask you, as you know, myself and Trade in Motion, we work in North America, Mexico, the US, and Canada. And you have been working in these countries, but also you have been working around the world. And I would like to know about people around. What do you think? Do you think that there are big, small, or some differences of people working around the world according to their cultures?
There are some differences, but Gabriella, in the main, I would say the similarities are what strike me most. I've worked in India, I've worked in parts of Africa, as you say, North America, worked in Colombia some, and Peru. Certainly, Peru is a mining country, and the business is well understood there. What strikes me most is the similarities between us, and working with people, in coming from some very, very different cultures. I mean, a number of projects, not least Santo Tomas. I don't speak good Spanish. Um, nevertheless, we seem to be able to communicate around issues of value and process, and uh, and and move forward projects because they're important to people of all cultures and backgrounds. Um, Certainly in India, I inherited a small team of people that grew some on a diamond evaluation project that became quite large. It had well over 100 people working on it, and a well-established office in one of the cities. Um, Everyone was really well trained technically, the geologists, the surveyors, the engineers, exceptionally good classically trained people, and they were easily motivated to advance the project. So, are there differences? There are, but really, I find them relatively insignificant. In my experience, people are motivated to
Mhm.
move projects forward. People like being parts of teams. They like to pursue success. Um, and particularly younger people, like to dream about a better future and be part of trying to provide for that. So, I've always found that rather, more the focus than the smaller issues of difference. And certainly, I've been very, very fortunate to be made welcome in, all of the places we've had significant projects over the years. And it sort of bothers me to think how many those years are now, but um, you know, in some ways more than I would like. But the reality is it's been good fun, it's been productive, and mostly I think it's the common ground we all have as people in the mining sector and pursuing a living that strikes me.
And Ian, at this moment in the United States and Canada, the percentage of students wanting to study something related to mining is decreasing.
Hmm.
We are seeing that the last 10 years it's decreasing. What would you tell the new generation about mining? What with all these years of experience, you have seen different generations working, going back and forth, or retiring, or in the mining industry. What would you tell them?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very attractive industry. For one thing, it is quite technologically advanced. A modern mining operation uses enormous technologies, particularly the large operations, to advance mining, the telemetry, all the way through the technology in trucks or underground mining equipment, the level of automation. So technologically, it's exciting. In my part of the sector, more of the exploration, remarkable opportunities to travel and to, explore for things that will be used in the future. So everything from greenfields, grassroots to more advanced projects. So I think it's really exciting. But your observation that the sort of centers of training and knowledge are moving is absolutely correct. I think we'll see the sector move from, almost entirely dominated perhaps by English and where senior
No.
personnel are commonly English speakers to far more dominated by, Spanish, Chinese, Hindi speaking people. So because the training is taking place and growing in those regions. So we're producing more geologists, mining engineers, etc., outside of the English speaking
Yeah.
sort of university world in greater numbers. And that in itself is quite exciting, I think. Certainly, I've enjoyed being part of Santo Tomás because we've seen some of that transition just in real time taking place there. Uh, Obviously, when I was the sort of key person on site in 2021 and putting the team together, uh, English was necessarily the dominant medium of communication between us. But as I visit back at the project now, far more it is Spanish, and which is really exciting in my view. and the project now is fundamentally run almost entirely by young Mexicans, our token Peruvian and Miguel. And I am just there periodically, as much as anything, to educate myself on what we're doing in detail down there. So, the world is changing. Certainly, though,
The world is changing.
young people contemplating a career, leaving high school and looking at what they might do, I would strongly recommend mining. It has been a cornerstone industry of the world economy for as long as there has been an economy, and it will remain a cornerstone industry, however big
Exactly.
or small. It will still be critical and important for as long as society requires raw materials. So, no, it's a very, very exciting sector. I guess for me personally, I somewhat fell into it. I knew I wanted to be in the sciences from a young age, didn't particularly know which one. And really on the cusp of going to university, somebody recommended to me going, taking geology, and that was fortuitous, I think, for me. But certainly, I do not regret that. It's been a wonderful career. And if I could have imagined what it might have looked like when I was 18, I would certainly not have been able to imagine how rich it actually has been. It's exceeded everything I might have dreamed about. So no, I would recommend it. I would say for people who don't like to travel or find themselves outside of their comfort zone, maybe they should choose something else. But for those who want to be surprised by their lives, they should certainly pursue the mining sector. And there are many disciplines within the sector that are, I think, very rewarding. There's, not just the geologies, there's metallurgy, the mining engineering, and the really broad spectrum now of technologies that are applied in the sector.
Yeah, and I agree, Ian. It's the mining sector is great. You really need to get into the sector to understand what it is. And talking about diversity, at this moment, Trading Motion has a client, and we are bringing geologists from everywhere. We have a team of Americans, people from Africa, from Oman, from Mexico, and that's what makes the team rich. All these different cultures, all these different experience, expertise of all of them together, that's what brings richness.
Mm.
That's what brings more to the project. And I like to see mining and in other industries, of course, how diversity can help a project or an operation to do it in a different way. There are many different ways of doing this.
I agree. I spent a summer in Northwest Russia working with a diamond exploration team there, and their sampling methods were very, very thorough, and I learned a lot working with that group. So it was fun. We covered a lot of ground, saw some interesting places, and there is no doubt that they put a lot of effort and intense labor into the sampling process that they applied. So yes, I agree with you as you see the various subtle variations in how people tackle, certainly on the exploration side, my experience, it's very educational. And I agree. As a born and raised in Africa person, I like to think we can get around the planet and help. So yes, it's extremely rich. And it has to be said that I mentioned India and other places earlier, but the training of young technical people that I've met in Mexico and Latin America, certainly in the sort of classic basics of their disciplines, is very good, very good. So, and I think that's true for more of the world than people might realize. So I agree with you. I think pulling together people and the disciplines from a wide geography is really something that it makes projects fun and
Yeah,
interesting and
yeah,
dynamic.
exactly. So Ian, we are arriving to the end of our podcast. I would like to give you time to say some words, whatever you want to say to our audience. Our audience is people in mining and people all around the world that don't know about mining.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I'd like to thank your audience. If anybody has managed to listen through the entire podcast, thanks for doing so. I hope it's been worth their time and effort. And yeah, if you know young people contemplating futures, mining certainly is worth thinking about. And I think we've seen a bit of a transition in the West back towards an appreciation of mining. Perhaps we were socially taken for granted in the last sort of 3, 4 decades, which is an indication that the sector has been basically quite efficient at bringing commodities to market at an affordable rate. Um, but I think the focus is back on the sector, and that gives us an opportunity, I think, to show that we can operate well, operate cleanly, and with minimum impacts, adverse impacts in our operations. So, that's all good. And again, just thank you, Gabriella. It's always fun to chat.
Yeah.
I guess this has been a bit more formal than our usual conversations, but I've enjoyed it enormously. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you, Ian. And thank you to our audience for listening to us, for connecting. And please follow us in social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, Trade in Motion. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening.